So we've got 500 grams of strong white bread flour. We've got a packet of active yeast. It's about 7 grams, I believe. 5 to 7 grams is the normal. And then we've got 2 teaspoons of salt. It's careful not to put the salt on the yeast when you're weighing things out if you're going to leave it, because it will kill the yeast as like an active source of food. And then in my jug I've got 300 ml of warm water. It's important that it's going to be warm because it'll help the yeast grow and get quite active. I've already put the oven on just to get it nice and warm as well. And then I've got 2 teaspoons of olive oil on the top. Helps with shelf life. So just to start, you'll mix all the ingredients together in your flour and make a well in the middle. I just use a fork because then it saves messy hands for when it's a bit better mixed in. I'd start with about half of it just to see how we go. And then when we start to get everything else mixed, add the water, but don't mix it too much, otherwise you'll find it becoming quite lumpy. So that's about half mixed now. It's soft to the touch, it's not crazy like wet or dry. Add the rest reserving just a tiny bit. Some flours, if you've had them in your cupboard longer, won't absorb as much moisture, or some flours like wholemeal will absorb a lot more moisture than the recipe normally gives. So it's important to reserve a little bit just in case. Oh, I'm so smart. It's like I know what I'm doing. So right now it's a bit soft to the touch, but it's starting to firm up quite a bit. At this point, if I'm not going to add any more liquid to it, I'd be happy to get hands in, but I want to add just that tiny bit more. See, my fork's moving through it easily, but there is some resistance, which means to me, I think that's about it. You can use a bread hook on a mixing machine if you're lucky enough to have one as well. They often bring it up quite nicely. So right now it's a warm mixture, but I'm going to start kneading. You can just get the flour out just in case. Sometimes you might need to add a little bit of extra flour if you've added a bit too much moisture, and it's just easier enough to move down. Cool. So at this point it's a bit sticky to the touch, which is good, but I think we're going to need a tiny bit. Oh, keep your bowl as well when you've got your dough to a good kind of texture. It's nice to just keep it proving in the bowl, and it saves washing up. So how I've been doing it so far is holding it back with one hand and then really stretching it out. You'll see it kind of rip and tear. You want to fold it back over on itself, turn it 45 degrees and keep going really. It is getting there nice and slowly. It becomes like really soft to the touch, and when it's perfect, when you'll push down and it'll spring back like a cake when it's done. It's not quite springy enough just yet, but stick with it. Nice good spring back. It's good and soft, so when I'm pushing into it, it's almost coming all the way back from where my finger ridges are. So what I'll do is I'll pop it in the bowl. You can either cover it with a damp tea towel over the top loose, not touching the dough if you can help it, or cling film. Cling film creates a tighter seal, and it's less likely to dry out and create a crust, which is what I prefer. So I'll give it probably a good hour until it's doubled in size at least. It depends how hot your room is. Could only take half an hour if you've got a really warm house, or if you've got a cooler space it might take a bit longer. So you want it at least double the size, and then we'll get going on some bread. Cool. Cool, so it's now got to double its size. It'll be nice and fluffy. Sounds weird. It will feel a little cool to the touch, but yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it. So we need to scrape this away from the bowl. If you've got a card scraper, which is like a small bit of plastic, that's really nice and easy, or a spatula or anything like that. I just personally prefer hands, because it means that I can get all the bits that are kind of like left over in there. So we turn it out and we do something what's called a knockback. So you basically want to flatten all the air that's been created out of it. The purpose of a first proof was to create flavour, and we've done that because the yeast has now developed. So we just knock that back nice and gentle, and then fold it in on itself, and we get ready to shape. So today I'm going to do some simple bread rolls. If you've got a weighing scale, perfect, it means you've actually weighed your ingredients out properly. If you haven't, don't worry about it too much. So my plan is to do 50-gram rolls. I might do 80-gram depending on how much is actually in my mixture. So I'm going to basically get the whole mixture and divide it by 6. So cool, looks like we're going to do 100-gram rolls today. So we just knock it back into its original ball and then roll it back on itself so it becomes tight again. And then we just want to like cut out some shapes. Like, the only reason I'm going to weigh this out is just so I keep everything nice and even. You don't have to weigh it out if you don't want to. You can plait it if you want to. If you've got kids, that's always a good kind of thing to keep you busy. You can make big shapes. Just remember that they will expand. They're going to create double the shape whichever you make them, and then they're going to rise further in the oven as well. So just a bear on the thoughts as it was. Cool. Awesome. So now these are all weighed out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a bread roll. So my technique is called the throwdown. I find it a lot easier than anything else. So literally throw it on your slab so it creates like a stick. Then you want to roll your hands by applying pressure. You want to push it as far as you can into the surface, just initially, so you've got the contact, and then gradually rise your hand up to a point, and the ball will develop, all the while creating pressure. So you want to go round any direction, it doesn't really matter, and as it tightens up, just loosen your hand off a little bit and it'll tuck itself all underneath. You'll have like a little seam or a little kind of divot, but yeah, that's it. And then just equally space them out on your tray.
Is that tray grease proofed?
Yeah, it's non-stick, all fancy in this kitchen. So
so aggressive.
yeah, it has to be. Yeah. Don't worry if they stick to each other on the tray as well, it just kind of looks almost a little bit more shop bought if that happens anyway. Cool. And then same again, either a damp tea towel or cling film till they're doubled in size. And then next stage. So that's all done. So we have the bread that's now doubled in size. What you can do at this point is You can either flour them, you can cook them as they are, you can water the top of them like really lightly with a brush and sprinkle like sesame seeds or other seeds, anything you want really. It's literally just a plain bread recipe, so if you want to put herbs in it, that works really well. If you want to try out some spices, like totally go crazy. You can put any kind of combination of things in there that you really want, which is the benefit of doing it just as a plain recipe. But yeah, I'm just going to cook them as they are. I'm going to go between 180 and 200 depending on how coloured you like them, and I'm going to try them for about 20 minutes, see how they go. Cool. So they've just come out of the oven. They had 20 minutes initially. I gave them a little bit of a turnaround and then I've given them another 10 just to get a nice bit of colour on. So they are very, very hot, as you can see. They're a tiny bit pale because just as a personal preference to me, but yeah, you can leave them in a bit longer if you want to make a bit crusty. I like them like a really soft roll, but that's the noise you should be able to hear. It makes like a nice crisp sound. It's not damp, it's dry, and I've got a nice bit of colour. But yeah, that's rolls for you. Nice and easy.